You're in for a treat today. Ladies, gentlemen, kids, animals, whoever is listening out there in radio land, this is a special episode. This is our first ever, but soon to be seasonal episode called Movies You Should Read. This is where we take on a movie that is based on a book, novel, or short story, and we look at how that movie compares to the source material or differs. Who knows? My guest today is Chelsey Stubbs, and she selected The Girl with All the Gifts based on the novel of the same name. She had read it. I have not. We will see. Don't forget to check out Ridleys Gaming Realm. You can search them on Facebook. That's RIDLEY, and make sure you tell them DFAT sent you. That's it. That's all I have. On with the show. Hey, Chelsey.
Hey, Bobby.
I'm so excited you're on the podcast finally. I've been pestering you since I started to get you on the podcast. And not only are you on, but this was your idea.
I know, and it took me only like 5 months to decide what book to read.
So why don't you tell the listeners what idea I'm talking about and how you came up with it?
What was the idea?
The idea is that we were going to cover a movie that was based on a book specifically. Right. And we have in the past. We covered Ready Player One and on I think a couple other movies too. But this is specifically, we picked the movie based on the book really versus vice versa. And we picked The Girl with All the Gifts. How did we pick this?
Well, randomly one day I just put this movie on for background noise. And I didn't know it was a book, and then I started researching, and I was like, "Oh, it's a book. This would be like great to talk about." I'm not a huge movie person. I'm more of a book person. So when you were like, "I want you to come on my podcast, we talk about movies," and I'm like, I'm the wrong person to talk to.
You read a lot, right? Like you read a lot of books.
I read more than a normal person should.
That's well put.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, it's kind of a stupid question, but why do you read so much?
I don't know, because I hated reading. I would refuse to read when I was younger. My mom actually started on me when she got me to read when I was sick one day. And she got me a bunch of comic books. So I read like Archie, like Jughead, Betty, like all that, Veronica. So that's how I got started reading. And then from there, it was just like, I ignored everybody in my life and would just read. My grandma would send me like books. No joke. I would see like the mail come and I would know like my grandma would send me a book, and I would be outside playing with like all my friends. Okay, bye guys. Like, see you later.
Time to go read.
And then I would just read.
That's crazy. I mean, that's great. So you put this movie on. You put the movie on as background noise. This is a very important question. Did you know what the movie was about when you first turned it on?
I didn't care. It was a zombie movie, so like I'm all for some zombie movies.
But you knew that much.
I knew that much. I knew there was like a weird girl with like crazy looking eyes and like a mask, and I was like, gotta watch it. This looks like a post-apocalyptic world scenario.
This is perfect. So not only did you know what the movie was about, but you have read the book. I have not read the book, and when you picked this, I had heard of the movie. I'd seen the poster before, but that was really the extent of it. I'd only ever seen the movie poster. And apparently I didn't see the movie poster very well either, because I thought that maybe this was a movie about a girl with like superpowers. Like, I don't know. Maybe she's like so like, so I had recently, and I say recently, I use that very loosely. We had watched Brightburn for the podcast, which is about a little boy who essentially has Superman powers, but he turns evil. So when I saw the movie poster for this, and she's got the Hannibal Lecter mask on, I was like, oh, this is about a female, like a child superhero who's bad, like obviously. And man, this movie was not about that at all. And it was really I thought it was I think it was a benefit walking into watching this and having no idea what the movie was about because it blew my freaking mind. But before we get into that, that is ultimately the goal we're going to talk about here today is was it a good movie? But before we get into that, before we find out what your opinion was, you read the book. So give me some details about the book. How long was it? Was it an interesting read? How is it very similar or not close at all to the movie? Stuff like that.
So the book is, I forget how many chapters, but it's 420 pages.
Okay, so I mean,
Yeah,
not terribly long.
no, not terribly long. It follows pretty well with the movie. Kind of. There are some major things I think that they missed out on. And then there's some things that I was like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting if it was in the book. Like, if they would do that. But you get more character development in the book, of course, because you got to get all the backgrounds and everything than you do in the movie. But they did the characters very well in the movie, I think. They probably could have done Gallagher a little bit better, Parks, but I think Dr. Caldwell, Justin New and Melanie, I think they did pretty well as for like building the characters up.
So that's interesting. So you have a unique perspective as well because your husband has written screenplays before, correct?
Has he?
I believe so. At least that was his intention at one
No, he
point.
has. So he does, and he tells me all about him, and I zone out.
As a good wife should.
As a good wife, and I just like, oh yeah, that sounds
But
interesting.
do you know how long a screenplay is usually?
His screenplay, too long, because I told him if I was a person reading the book, I would just be like, I'm done. Like, we're over. You're not J.J. Abrams. Like, quit while you're ahead. I don't need 30 different time scenarios.
Most of your screenplays are going to max out at like 100 pages, like if that. I mean, I've heard of screenplays as little as 20 pages or 25 pages. So when you're talking about taking a 400 and something page book and squishing it down into a screenplay, that's a lot of times what people say, oh, the book was better, had more detail. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like a third of the size the screenplay is. But with that being said, you also brought up some of the characters. I want to get into that a little bit. So Melanie, who is the little girl, is essentially the star of this movie. She is played by an actress by the name of Sennia Nanua. I'm sure I'm butchering that. She hasn't been in anything really since, wasn't really in anything before this. One of the interesting things I heard about this was they had auditioned 500 different little girls for this role. When I say little girls, I mean she's probably 13. I don't know, somewhere around there. Anyway, she was number 500. She was the last girl to be auditioned for this role, and they said that as soon as they interviewed her, they loved her. Super intelligent, but also warming, not over eager. So I think she did a phenomenal job in this movie.
Yeah, no, she was great. And I mean, they didn't speak a lot in this movie. As you can see, there wasn't a lot of dialogue, but like I didn't feel like she spoke a lot. There's a lot of internal dialogue in the book with her more than there is like speaking. But I thought she did great. And I'm surprised that this is like her first major movie role because she was great
she was really good.
Yeah.
When you say there's a lot of internal dialogue in the book, that's interesting to me. So she's essentially a zombie, and we'll get into the details about that later. But what kind of which I love. I love that they refer to the zombies in this movie as hungries, which when they first said it, I was like, that is a amazing name.
So simple, right?
So simple.
They are hungry.
What sort of internal dialogue is there? I mean,
There's a lot. She thinks. So she's you could tell from the movie that she is smart. Like especially when they are in the classroom and she's like answering all the questions and like she's asking for more. She's like very inquisitive and she wants to learn. So in her mind, like I mean, they're in a cell for like 20 hours out of the day, right? They're only out of the cell for a couple hours in the classroom and then back again. So the whole time she's thinking. She doesn't sleep. So they sit there.
They don't sleep.
They don't sleep. That I didn't pick up sleeping out of the book at all. Like they don't sleep. She doesn't go to the bathroom. She doesn't have regular bodily functions.
Yeah, that's interesting because they don't tell you one way or the other in the movie, but you do get. I mean, there's a bed in her cell. So I never questioned it, but that's interesting. They don't sleep. So I mean, is the internal dialogue, is it zombified at all?
No. she's a normal person. Like she's thinking, she's wondering why she's there. She doesn't know where she came from. She doesn't know anything other than the cell in the classroom.
That's crazy.
So she doesn't remember anything from a time before, basically. So everything she's learning is in that classroom. Past that, she doesn't know anything.
Okay. So arguably one of the other leads in the movie is a character by the name of Helen Justinia.
I think it's
Justini?
Justinu.
Justinu? Okay, we'll go with that.
Maybe. Yeah.
She's played by Gemma Arterton. I think from now on, everybody who enters Hollywood should just be like a Brad Pitt. Much easier to say.
Right.
She is from Hansel and Gretel. She's from with Jeremy Renner in 2013. She's from Murder Mystery in 2019. She's been in a couple different films. You'd probably recognize her if you saw her type actress. But this is really, I think, other than Hansel and Gretel, one of her first leading roles. Have you seen anything else she's been in?
I haven't.
What did you think of her acting in this?
Okay. I mean, she matches the character in the book. Spot on. I don't think much more of it.
Yeah, my only issue is I think her character is supposed to be like the motherly figure,
right, yeah.
For Melanie, but I didn't get the sense from her. She played the motherly part very well, but I can't picture that motherly character in the setting that they are in, specifically on the base before it gets overrun. She's surrounded by essentially assholes and very authoritative, focused, military personnel, and she stands out like a sore thumb. And that was the only kind of thing that kind of threw me off a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah, in the book, I don't think I can't really remember, but I don't think she's like military born. Like she wasn't like in the military before all this happened.
Okay.
I think she's just basically like a teacher.
Still though, I mean, this has been
but like
going
she's
on.
not 30 years. Actually, they don't tell you in the movie how long this has been going on, I
They
don't think.
they don't, but you can kind of guess by the way the surroundings are that we're going. Well, so here's the thing. So we find out, you know what? Let's take this one step at a time because I'm really excited about this because this is how I found out. So I'm watching the movie, and the movie starts off, and you got Melanie in her cell. She's literally in like a prison cell. She's got a prison jumpsuit, and what's even crazier is she's counting down, and while she's counting down, she's like kind of buckling herself into like a wheelchair. It's very clear that she doesn't need the wheelchair. It's meant to keep her strapped down and not do anything. But she's a functioning, child at this point. So what could she possibly do? Then two armed guards come in, aiming assault rifles at her, and essentially make sure she's strapped down, and then wheel her to a classroom where you see 19 other kids in the same jumpsuit and the same wheelchair strapped in. So at this point, I'm still operating under the assumption.
Great opening, though,
Right.
of the movie, right? Perfect.
Great opening. She's clearly an evil superhero
Right.
that needs to be strapped into a wheelchair and presented with automatic rifles. So then we get the teacher. She comes in and she's obviously a motherly figure. Right off the bat, she's very motherly to them. She reads them a story. She ends up touching Melanie on the head, like, good job or like sympathy or whatever. And then immediately we're met with Sergeant Eddie Parks. He's played by Paddy Considine. He's from The World's End with Simon Pegg in 2013, also House of Dragon. He's gonna have a huge role in the upcoming Game of Thrones spinoff House of Dragon, so that's exciting. Other than that, he hasn't really been in much. English actor, I think he played this role amazing. I think he did a really good job.
He did. So how did you take? Did you feel like his character was likable at all?
So that's a really, really good question, and I'm anxious to hear your take on it as well, because I think that based on my experience in the military, he was likable to me. I mean, he was clearly somebody who had a mission, understood the seriousness of his mission, and didn't let his emotions get in the way of executing that in the serious context that it needed. But I could understand as somebody, not in the military, seeing that and seeing him as cold or unlikable.
So I completely movie, I could see that people would perceive him as unlikable character. Very like military wise, yes, he's perfect for the role. He's got it down. He's doing what he has to do. He's following orders, and that's what he's. There's no questions asked, basically. And then he does that the whole movie. in the book, basically the same thing. He calls them freaking abortions. In but he doesn't actually. That's a good point. He doesn't. They don't do that in the book. There is no
Really?
right. So that makes him more of an unlikable character. I think they try to play that more in the movie.
Huh.
But the abortions, I think, are mentioned once. He calls them. He tells like the new people, the new military people that are coming in. You should be afraid of these abortions. You know, blah blah blah. But he doesn't say that at all really in the book.
So you think he's
Um,
more likable in the book?
he builds his character builds to be more likable towards the end. And Miss Justinu kind of sees him that way, but she can't see past all the like the murder because she knows like all
Yeah.
like he's done terrible things, and so is she because she's complacent in the fact that they are keeping these children as test subjects in this like base.
I mean, you bring up a good point. So in the book, Sergeant Parks and Miss Justinu, they have a relationship, correct?
They at towards the end, very very end, there is no she hates him up until like the last like 3 chapters of the book, I would say.
So I got to imagine, I got some tastes of that in the movie that I assume was probably cut out due to runtime. There's a comment that Melanie makes early on. So Sergeant Parks comes storming in the room at Miss Justinu and proceeds to remind her how crazy these creatures are. He spits on his arm and kind of rubs it in, and then presents it to one of the kids, who immediately starts like chattering his teeth. It's clear that he wants to attack the sergeant, and then the other kids in the classroom start doing it a little bit too. And he pulls out some ointment or whatever, rubs it on his arm, and it kind of stops, and he exits the room. Now at this point, I'm watching that and I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. I wonder what that is or how that's going to play into this whole superhero thing that this movie's clearly about. Um, we then get introduced later on to Dr. Caroline Caldwell, played by Glenn Close, which is insane. Glenn Close, from she had a throwaway part in Guardians of the Galaxy shortly after this, and really hasn't been in anything since Hillbilly, until Hillbilly Elegy in 2020, which is critically panned as a very bad movie. Glenn Close, to me, is one of those actresses that is amazing in certain roles, and in other roles, I think she's good in the role, but she picks it for a really bad movie. Hillbilly Elegy being one of them.
I did not like her in this movie.
What?
No, I did not. I just thought maybe it was the line she had in the book. Dr. Caldwell was like a really great character, and the fact that she's what she is, but they didn't really play that into the movie. Dr. Caldwell is like completely insane in this book. She is focused on finding the cure. She's really all about the recognition. I don't
Really?
I don't think she cares really about the finding the cure as more as she cares about people recognizing her for doing it. Like
Huh.
she literally at the end of the book is like, "Oh, they'll remember me and they'll call what do they call it? The Ophiocordyceps or something. That's what they call the spores that we'll get into later, probably the trees that are coming out of
Yeah.
these hungaries now. She like names it that, and then a play off of like a scientific name of her name. So like still to the end, she's like, people will recognize me for doing all this great work. Like they made her really not seem all about herself in the movie. And I feel like if they played that up, it would have been like she would have been a great like psychotic
See,
like
that's
doctor.
interesting, and this is one of the great things we're going to get out of this podcast is I having not read the book saw her character as more of a bridge between the all heart Miss Justini, whatever her name is,
Justin.
um
Justin.
Justinu, yes, Miss Justinu, and the all focus of Sergeant Parks. Glenn Close plays this character really walking a tightrope between understanding the humanity that is in these children and also realizing the amount of destruction they could do. And I do think she's very focused on finding a cure in the movie. That's definitely, you could see the wheels turning at almost every point in
Right.
the movie that's what she's focused on. But she has several conversations with Miss Justinu about her struggle between the monster and the child, which I thought was really well played.
No, so she does not care. She does not see
Wow.
these children as anything but hungries. They are not alive. They are like they're dead. They don't mean anything. They're just a specimen on my table to dissect.
Jeez, that's
And I think they
crazy.
could have played that up more because up until the end, that's exactly what she's all about. It is. I liked her. I think I probably liked her character more than anybody else in the book because she stayed true to who she was.
Yeah.
Like she didn't sugarcoat it. All she wanted to do was get Melanie on the table and dissect her and figure out why her brain works different than the others. Like Melanie wasn't the first one. Like they call her test subject number one, or like subject one, or like child one. She wasn't. Like there was many before her, but she was the smartest out of every single one of them.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's very evident. So Dr. Caldwell is talking to Melanie at night while she's in her room. They have several conversations, but at the end of every conversation, she asks her to pick a number 1 through 20. And Melanie puts together very quickly that whatever number she says, that child doesn't show up to class the next day. So Melanie has a little bit of an outburst with her, need for blood, and kind of gets angry at herself and gives her own number for the next number for Mr. Dr. Caldwell's experiments. She's then taken to a room and she's about to be dissected. Now, at the same time, what's happening in the background is the base is being attacked. And this is great. They don't, this is a zombie movie that does not put the zombie in the forefront. The Hungries are attacking this compound. They overrun the fences. They're running around. They're eating everybody. But even in the sense of this, kind of battle that's happening, I, the camera's not focused on the zombies or the Hungries rather. It's focused on Melanie and uh, Justinu and Dr. Caldwell and Sergeant Parks, and there's a couple other people, and their attempt to get out of the base.
right. First major divergence from the book. I think. Why were the Hungries attacking the base
Um, I don't know. I will tell you that it was also the first major divergent from the superhero movie that I was watching.
at the same
Um,
time?
at the same time, I was like, clearly this is not a superhero movie, and I was wrong, which was great because again, the zombies are so not the forefront that this movie at this point is completely taking me by surprise and continues to moving forward. So, in the book, does it explain why the base is being
Yeah.
attacked?
And it's so funny. And I get why, maybe it's just because they were such an insignificant part of the book. So it wouldn't really play out well in the movie. So Gallagher, we don't really haven't talked about him much. Not the sharpest tool in the shed, not the
Definitely
brightest
not.
crayon in the box.
So
um,
he is one of the guards that is going to escape with this group. He is a main character for a large part of the movie.
he was on patrol, I guess, the day before or like hours before. I don't really remember the timeline in the book, but him and another person were, and they came across Hungries and they ran. They come out of like the brush or the tree line, and there are what they call junkers. People who didn't make it to Beacon, which is like the safe haven, stayed outside the wire basically. So these junkers have guns pointed at them and they're like, run, like they're still running away from these Hungries that are chasing him. Or they run past the junkers as they were going to try to shoot him. Something scuffle happens. All he hears is screaming in the background. So he gets back to base. He reports to Parks and says, we came across Hungries, we ran, we came across Junkers, we heard screaming. Basically, they probably were eaten. There were three of them. So in like the next few hours, the base gets overran by these Hungries. It's the Junkers pushing the Hungries towards the base, and Parks thinks it's in retaliation for getting the Junkers killed by the Hungries. Gallagher could be the cause of the whole base
Yeah,
like
which
being
doesn't
overrun
surprise me. That's actually crazy. So Junkers are not in the movie at
at
all.
all. Right.
And this is kind of where when you take a book and turn it into a movie, fans of the book will get upset. But you have to understand it from a studio's perspective. Imagine, and this is gonna be a pretty bad analogy, but imagine you have a nice steak in front of you, and this is the book, and as you're turning it into a movie, you've got to cut off the fat, and a lot of times you have to cut it down so much, you start cutting off some of the meat as well, if
Right.
you will. And that's how, movies can lose full storylines that appear in the book that don't appear in the movie because it's just the easiest thing to cut out and you can lose 20 minutes. There's so many director's cuts of movies that are 3 hours long and studios need that trimmed down to an hour 45, and you're talking half the movie. Storylines are going to get thrown out. So what are junkers, and how are they more in the book?
So the junkers are people obviously who didn't make it to the safe zone, who decided not to go to the safe zone, which is Beacon, which is
Why
like I
would
guess the
anybody just I don't know how this would play in normal society. Why would anybody willingly choose not to do something that could potentially save their life? I don't understand how that would
I mean,
that's
I
so
don't
unbelievable to me.
it's very unbelievable in this day and age,
Right.
like 2020, 2021.
DFAT Comics is the publishing branch of Don'tForgetATowel.com, the only place to travel geekly. Focusing on creator-owned and independent titles like Hollowed, Pursuit of Plastic, and Fairy, and many more. DFAT Comics will be a mix of genres appealing to every kind of reader. Join the new source of comic book entertainment with DFAT Comics.
Do you remember Conan on Nintendo? Oh, how about Earthworm Jim on 64? That was my jam. Do you wish you still had it? Or maybe you have it and you're looking to clean out your collection and make some extra cash. Luckily, either way, we have the answer for you. Ridley's Gaming Realm. It's a one-stop shop for great gaming discussion, as well as a place for retro buying, selling, and trading without all the fees and drama of the other selling sites. They pride themselves on having over a year of zero reported scams, and you can find them on Facebook. Just search Ridley's Gaming Realm. That's RIDLEYS. Or click on the link in the show description. And make sure you tell them DFAT sent you.
So basically, they're scavengers, right? They are living out in the wild with all these hungries. And I guess they're stuck on revenge because they eventually, they escape base. They hop in a tank, basically. Like throughout the movie, they're like they're running away from the junkers to get to Beacon. The junkers chase them all up to a certain point, and I forget where they deviate. But after that point, the junkers aren't mentioned at all in the book, except for one part. Melanie makes up a story we will get to later. But like so like cutting the fat in that scenario, fine, because they weren't really a part of the story other than they were like tracking them.
And for the movie, there's no real reason for the Hungries to be attacking the base. They just are. That's zombies. They attack.
Right.
And their motivation to get to Beacon is just survival. They don't need, the junkers pushing them towards Beacon.
Exactly. So cutting that fat, that's fine. That was bad fat. That wasn't the good fat, in my opinion.
So, yeah, the runtime on this movie is 111 minutes. It's an hour and 51 minutes. That's kind of average, I would say. Hour 45 is usually average, so hour 51 isn't bad at all. I could definitely see where, maybe an original cut of this might have been, close to 3 hours with some of the side stories and stuff.
Yeah. The main focus of the book are these characters getting through the city, basically, and trying to locate themselves to Beacon.
Let's talk about the book real quick. So the book, it's a novel by the same name, The Girl with All the Gifts, and it's written by Mike Carey.
Yeah, Mike Carey.
Have you read?
No, I haven't read any of his stuff. I thought you might have because he writes
comics.
Yeah,
He's
so I found that
comic
interesting.
book writer. Yeah. He wrote Lucifer, which is part of the Sandman series, also a big popular show on FX and Hulu and probably 2 other networks. He wrote some of Fantastic Four, some X-Men, and a couple others. But yeah, he's mainly a comic book writer, which is kind of cool. He's written a couple novels. This is one of them, and it was quickly turned into a movie, distributed by Warner Brothers, but only Warner Brothers in Britain. The American distribution was given to a company called Saban Films, and
they've done some
Chelsey,
movies, right?
They've done a lot of movies.
Right.
You're gonna get so many points right now if you can tell me what Saban, what his claim to fame is, Mr. Saban.
I can't, and I know it's probably like right on the top of my head because I'm like, oh, Saban, I know that from somewhere, so I get no points.
So Saban, the gentleman who runs the Saban entertainment industry, he got his money by purchasing the American distribution of the Power Rangers. Oh. What's very interesting about his story, though, is that when he bought and licensed the distribution, he made it a requirement that everything that has Power Rangers, essentially changing the name of the characters from the Power Rangers to Saban Presents the Power Rangers. So every single movie that's a Power Ranger movie has to have the Saban logo in the beginning, which is just insane. These are the deals you don't see Hollywood
This
doing
is
anymore.
hilarious.
So this is the girl with all the gifts, brought to you by the Power Rangers guy. It's released August 3rd, 2016 at a film festival. It does really well. It then gets the UK distribution that September, and then doesn't come to the United States until the following February. Official US release is February 24th, 2017. It opens against only in the US. It opens against Get Out, Logan, John Wick Chapter 2, Rings. Like this movie got buried.
Terrible. It totally got buried. It like got smashed.
Got
And
smashed.
this is like, and I feel like if this was put out at the right time, people would have been like, this is like a great movie. Because
Yeah.
Alec watched it with me and he had no idea what it was about. And he was like, this is really great. And he doesn't really say that about a lot of movies that I picked. So I was like, score one for me. And he liked it. So I mean, like, I think it would have done really well in the box office if it wasn't put next to Get Out and Logan.
Because Get Out is an amazing movie. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. The original premise, and then Logan, which has obviously got a huge comic book following. It's Hugh Jackman's last Wolverine movie. Yeah, horrible movie, but you know. Then John Wick Chapter 2 obviously had a huge following as well, and went on to make a third one, and probably I think
just watched that last night.
The third one.
Yeah.
Is it any good? It's the only one I haven't seen.
It? Alec thinks it's stupid, but I like them. So
I liked the first one. The second one got stupid, so then I never watched the third one, but I heard it was good.
They're making another one. Or Alex says they have to make another one. But Alex says that there is 2 more in the works, I think. But they're female versions.
Oh,
and made by 2 different studios. So it's going to be interesting.
Ridiculous. The movie is directed by Colm McCarthy. It's really his first and only movie he's directed. He's done a bunch of TV shows, including Black Mirror, Doctor Who, Peaky Blinders. But that's really his whole repertoire is TV shows, which is a shame because I'd like to see him direct some more stuff. This is a really good movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
And it followed the book pretty well.
They leave the base. The middle part of the movie is going to be a lot of filler. They're going through a rundown, empty city, which is supposed to be London, I believe, is what he says. Going through downtown London.
London, England, yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but he mentions that they're going through a city, and this is shot in Pripyat, which is near Chernobyl. Chernobyl, the nuclear event happening in 1986. Obviously, they had to evacuate the city pretty fast, so you can imagine the context of the film. It's in a city that is built, and it looks like everybody in the city just got up one day and left, and the plants have started to overgrow. And the reason why it looks like that is because that's exactly what happened. So they go through this city, during the process of which they discover a couple things. Number one, we find out the origins of Melanie. She was a baby in the womb when apparently her mother was bitten, and these guards, or not the guards, the soldiers out on a patrol one day stumble across basically a whole ICU full of pregnant mothers who have had infants basically eating the way out of the mother, which is because they're hungry, but they're born hungry, which is crazy. Is it the same thing in the novel?
So we don't learn that really what happens or like who Melanie is or where she came from until towards the last like 2 chapters of the book. They basically just tell her she's probably an abandoned child from the Junkers or something. She's not that she was born with this infection.
That would have been better. They should have held off towards the end because we find that out probably within the first half hour of the movie.
Right. And towards the end, she's like, don't tell me anymore, because it basically Dr. Caldwell saying like to sustain life as an infant, you ate your mother. Like basically to survive, you ate your mother. But yeah, so they don't say any of that until the end of the book. I think they should have waited too towards the end of the movie and give it more suspense, like building, like where did she come from? Where did all the other ones come from? Kind of issues. But yeah, so I think that was a major miss in the movie. They think they did it too soon. I think that letting the mystery just stay there and letting her have her innocence still kind of in the movie, because she's very innocent. Like this is a whole new world to her. She
Yeah,
doesn't
I think
understand.
once you find out that, her origins, you do kind of look at her like, is she gonna pop? During one of these events, because they keep sending her out because the Hungries won't attack her because they think she's one of them, but yet she's conscious enough where they can hide in a building and send her out to see if it's clear or try to find food or whatever. And they do that a couple times to the point where they really start developing a bond with her. Specifically,
Right.
Sergeant Parks starts kind of trusting her a little bit, and she doesn't wear her mask all the time, and so on and so forth. It's basically as long as you keep her fed, and she does, she feeds off various animals they stumble across, then she's in complete control and she's good. It's when she starts getting hungry, and the more she gets hungry, the less able she is able to control it.
Right. Yeah. So it's same in the book. Sergeant Parks trusts her more. Not fully because he still understands that she is a hungry at the core. Like she will eat you. But they wear the blocker, which is like the scent reduction, basically lotion that
Right.
they put on her. And when like it gets wiped off, obviously she like goes on the frenzy and stuff like that. But in the book, she towards the end she builds up almost like an immunity to it, like the smell of them because they obviously run out of it because they don't have a stockpile of this blocker on
Right.
them. So she builds up an immunity to it, which is almost like, okay, so can everyone build up immunity to
Right.
this?
So they
So
don't touch
yeah,
on that at all in the movie. The E blocker is mentioned, but it's kind of just as a quick explanation as to why they're not getting attacked all the time. And as the movie goes on, it becomes kind of a background thought, and
right.
they don't ever reference them running out of it or any of that.
Yeah, so in the book they definitely constantly say he's because they like go through the rain, obviously that's gonna wash it off, sweat,
How long is their journey in the book?
ah, I have no idea. Like maybe 3 days.
Okay, because
It's like 40 pages before the base gets overrun. Like or like it's a lot. There's a lot of like Stephen King description, like internal dialogue kind of stuff. And I'm just like Dean Koontz kind of stuff. You just are like, okay, get to the story, get to the
yeah,
line, let's go.
yeah.
Build me up here.
In the movie, the entire journey looks like it takes. They don't really they don't go into detail, but I would say maybe a max of 5 days.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess that was about the same timeline.
three
Until
5 days.
until they find the that like mobile lab,
Yeah,
basically.
so they're going through the city. They stumble across this mobile lab, at which point Dr. Caldwell says, "This is all I need. With this, I can finish my experiment, which is essentially dissecting Melanie." Um, our guard, or I keep saying guard because it looks like a prison in the beginning. Our soldier, who caused all this, he's eaten by a horde of other Melanies, essentially children who are infected but not turned. And what's interesting about this is also on this journey, they figure out that the infection, unlike most zombie movies, is not a virus, it's a fungus. This is based on a real life fungus called the zombie fungus. The scientific name is Outellius, which
Ophiocordyceps.
there you go. Um, you also green light as a doctor. That's awesome.
I wrote it down phonetically.
So this is a real fungus that is in ants, where the fungus will infect the ant, essentially eat away its ability to think with its own brain, and then use its body to move the ant to the tallest part of the plant. At which point, the ant essentially dies, and the fungus grows out of it like a tree, disperses spores, and infects more ants. The movie, you find out on this journey, not only is it a fungus, but it's also grouping together the hungries in one area so it can create a large plant and disperse the spores. They stumble across this tower of pods.
Yeah. Kind of the same thing happens in the book. I think I got more from the book, from the movie that Dr. Caldwell already knew about this. Like
I
she had like a sense of like this was happening.
I think they definitely knew that it was a fungus, and she does make an off colored comment in the beginning where she says they seem to be grouping in large areas. We don't know why.
Yeah.
And then it's not until they find the tower and the spores where she goes, "Oh, this is clearly, just by seeing this, I can deduce that this
Yeah.
is clearly what's going on."
In the book, yeah, it was like kind of the same revelation. She still didn't understand. She knew what the pods were. she mentions the pods, like, oh yeah, there some event would happen, but she doesn't say what type of event would open these pods and the spores and would cause like the end of the world the second time.
Then she
Little
bangs it on the
arm.
ground,
Oh
which
yeah, we didn't even
freaked me
talk
out.
about her getting injured in the.
Right. So that's one of the things that I struggled with. So first with the pods, they're indestructible. She does quickly deter in the movie that, oh yeah, they're indestructible. They would probably open with water or fire. And it
Right,
was like, well,
like
that was clearly foreshadowing. And
foreshadowing.
also, how do you know that?
If these are
Well,
the first times that you've like seen them,
right.
how do you know?
What I also really liked was, again, it appeared that she knew they were fungus in
Right.
the beginning of the movie.
She's
But
smart. She's very smart.
when you start to get the close-ups of the hungries as they're walking through the city, the virus presents itself as fungus. The makeup in this movie was amazing. I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
see anywhere where it was nominated for any awards, but I think the makeup artist should have definitely got nominated.
Oh yeah. I think they were great. They were great zombie-esque. Even better, I think, than most because like you get the decaying, like skins falling off kind of like scenarios in
Right.
most zombie movies, but this one it was definitely more focused on like these are living organisms. Like this is
Right.
a fungus. They're like getting the green spots on their face. It looks like they're cracked, dried skin,
Yeah, and the fact that
becoming a
this is a
shell.
real the fact that this is a real fungus and the book and movie are centered around the idea that this fungus could spread to humans and we're living through a pandemic, that was a little uneasy to watch.
Perfect movie. I love watching this.
So
It prepares
this
me.
this is the point. So okay, let's talk about Dr. Caldwell getting attacked.
Right.
I don't remember this happening in the movie,
Oh, okay.
and when she reveals the outcome, I was very surprised. I'm like, when the hell did that happen?
Okay. So when they had Melanie on the table to like
Hmm.
dissect her, the siren started in the movie, and then like the second doctor or like Miss Justin who busted in there and was like with like the fire hydrant, I think. Like she
Yeah,
was like,
fire extinguisher.
yeah, exactly. Like, not hydrant because then she would be like Superwoman. Um,
It's a superhero movie,
yeah, it's superhero, of course. Siren started going off and like she sprays her in the face with like the pepper spray,
which is great.
which was hilarious. But anyway, so the alarm goes off. The doctor tells the other doctor to shut the blinds,
Hmm.
the metal blinds that come down. So of course she like shuts it and is like not looking at the open window to see if like anything is coming for them. She just
Right.
assumes they're safe. Why
I
not?
mean, you would think if something was coming from them, there'd be some sort of alarm
Right.
going
Going
off.
off. She's all calmly like, should we evacuate? She's like, no, shut the blinds. And then like she walks over there and like turns away from the window. And then the zombie, like, of course, like attacks her through the window. So Dr. Caldwell grabs glass like from the broken window and starts
Right.
stabbing like the zombies in the head.
Okay. And
Um,
that's where she
and that's
cuts
how
her.
she gets the cut.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
So
that and
she's
then that happens also in the movie. That's how it happens with her.
so I do remember that scene. I didn't pick up on the fact that she was cut there. And at this point, now we're several days later, it's infected, and she tells
Well,
no,
she
it's
doesn't
with
do that in the
Melanie.
movie.
She has the
Yeah.
conversation with Melanie. So Melanie, Sergeant Parks, and Miss Justinine, or whatever the hell her name is.
That's
Um, what is it?
Justin New.
Justin knew. I keep
We're
just
probably both wrong, but I
make it
sound
a
better.
Smith, like makes Mrs. Smith. They go out on a little patrol to try to find the other soldier who at this point is being eaten by Rugrats, literally from Nickelodeon. And they come back to Dr. Caldwell has filled up this medical uh, bus with some sort of gas that knocks them out, which is extremely clever, by the way.
Right.
Kudos to her
She's
for
like
being
in a
smart.
suit, like
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome. And she's doing this because she's basically explains to Melanie in the next scene because Melanie does not inhale this because of the fungus. But that's a whole nother side story. Um, and tells Melanie, listen, I'm dying. I'm dying because my hand is infected. I'm not going to survive very much longer. You are the key to being able to cure this. You contain this what I need to make the antibodies in your body, but I need to dissect you. I need to get out of your spinal cord. So that's why I want to do this. And it's at this moment that the movie takes a turn that I was not a fan of.
Right. So and it takes a turn in the book. because this doesn't have. I mean, it does happen in the book in one way or another, but this is not how it happens at all.
Okay. So why
Which I'm
don't
really excited about because I'm just like, oh yeah, there is like a huge like deviation that makes it kind of like I think better. I think they should have went with the book ending and not the movie
I
ending.
love how we're not saying it. Like this is
Yeah.
great. Um so before we get into that, the budget for this movie was 5.25 million dollars.
Not enough.
So 5.2. Box office 4.08. It didn't even make its
Oh.
money back, which means it was a failure. We're probably not going to see any sequels. In the movie, Dr. Caldwell is explaining to Melanie, let me do this. And up until this point in the movie, Melanie is bending over backwards, helping out these humans, and very enthralled by Mrs. Justinu.
Right.
And Dr. Caldwell says, if you want to save Miss Justinu, this is how you're going to save her. It's only a matter of time before she gets attacked. Melanie basically leads Dr. Caldwell outside to where she's eaten, goes over to this tower of pods and lights it on fire so all the pods get released. She bumps into Sergeant Parks, who is breathing in the pod fumes and is so afraid to turn, he talks Melanie into shooting him, and then goes back to where Miss Justinu is inside this medical bus and essentially locks the door and says, "You can't come out. You'll get infected." I won't go into how it ends, but that's what transpires. And I'm watching this and I'm like, I feel like up until this point, the character that I've been looking at in Melanie would not do this. She seems like she would 100% give her life for Miss Justinu. I imagined, Dr. Caldwell talks her into this. She lays down. She willingly takes the complete, destruction, and they get the vaccine. Everybody lives happily ever after. And there's some statue of this little girl in Central Park at some point. What happens in the book?
That's a great dream.
That's
I've never like I'm thinking of like, could that be like no, because that wouldn't be a zombie movie. Like what zombie movie ends that way?
I mean, I'm trying to think. Has there never been
Like
a
what
zombie
happy
movie that
ending do
ended
you want?
positively? Shaun
No.
Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead ended positively.
Really, John, that's the best one.
That's what that's the one I'm picking and I'm sticking to it.
No zombie movie ends that way. That's that's good pipe dream, but it's not gonna happen. No, and so in the book, so where do we so we deviated from Gallagher. Let's start with Gallagher.
Okay.
So they get to this lab, right?
Gallagher is the other soldier, by the way.
The one that we don't talk about because
Right.
who cares? So, so they get to this lab. Dr. Caldwell doesn't care about anybody. She's like trying to get it all up and running. There's no food. So that's what in the movie, they send Gallagher out. Well, this in the book, Sergeant Parks is working on the engine because he's trying to get it up and running because it's not working. So
Right.
he's working on that. He tells Justinu and Gallagher to go scavenge for food. So they leave together. They're together scavenging for food.
Oh.
Melanie at this point basically ask Sergeant Parks, like, I need to eat. Like, you guys are smelling way too good. Like, I need to go. So he lets her go. And then like Miss Justinu's like, oh, but like I want to make sure Melanie's safe, like, and he's like, I already let her go. Like basically she's gone. And they're like, what do you mean she's gone? And he's like, she was hungry. She doesn't want you to see her as a monster. So she wants to basically, get food and come back and, make sure you don't see her as someone that's going to potentially eat her one day. So Melanie's gone, of course. She's on this journey. So Gallagher and Justinu go look for food. So they're going through the city and they find some, but it's like crackers and like candy, They come back. Melanie's not back yet. So Justinu was like, where's she at? We have to find her. And there's like a flare gun. She fires a flare gun out in the air, which is stupid because the hungries are attracted to sound and light.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? That's stupid. Melanie sees it. She's like sitting on a roof contemplating life, basically. She's just like
she's taking a break.
Right. She's already
chilling.
done her fill. She's already eaten a cat, a dog, probably at this point, some rats. And she's like, sees the flare and it makes her happy. She's like, oh, maybe I should go back, basically. She's But in that, and on her return, she ends up in like a mall And that's where she sees the children. So she sees these children with like sticks and they're fighting and like they're laughing and she wants to join in on it, but she's like, I can't, like I need to go back. And on the process of her going back, she's like choking because she's crying, like she's showing emotion, like because she noticed these children are her. These are like her family. She sees that they're family, and like she feels like a kindred spirit.
Are they though?
Because they growl and they got face paint and like they're crazy. They're not you, Melanie. Get it together.
So I do want to point out though that you mentioned the other children are laughing and playing with sticks. In the movie, they're setting a trap to eat somebody. Like that's the extent. So they're not humanized at all.
Not in the fact that so they're not Melanie humanized because she was.
But in the book, it sounds like they are a little bit more.
Well, no. I mean, they're poking each other with knives and sticks. I don't know how smart that is, but they don't.
Have you seen my two little ones?
That's true. No, but I mean, they're not. But they're still children functioning outside of the Hungries. They're not these like standing still adults that are like just growing fungus and waiting to die. So besides that, she makes it back. So it's like the next day she makes it back. She tells him that she has something to tell him. Like she saw something. She makes up this like story of the Junkers. The Junkers found us. Like the Junkers, I was at this place, they were like practicing sword fighting basically. So she makes up this story. She's like, yeah, they were wearing like the same outfits. I remember like the tattoo on the guy's shirt or like that arm or whatever. Like I remember some like symbol. And Parks is like, are you sure that these are the same ones? She's like, yeah, because right when I was about to leave, 3 came in and said we lost the trail. And then like she's like, the leader got really mad and sent him back to go find the trail again, or they were going to become like practiced like with the knife, like they were going to be like dummies basically. So they're like, okay, we got to figure this out. So Sergeant Parks is like, okay, everybody close down the lab. We got to go. So Miss Justinu goes to Sergeant Parks for something. And Sergeant Parks is like, I need you to talk to her because she's making up a bunch of shit. Basically, she's a liar. He's like, I need you to go back. She trusts you. Try to find out what the real story is. What did she see? Because whatever she saw scared her enough to make us say we have to go. Like, we got to get to Beacon, the place that she really probably doesn't want to go because once she gets to Beacon, Dr. Caldwell is going to like dissect her brain. So
that's a really good point.
Right. So,
at this point, she has no motivation to go to Beacon.
So Gallagher is like freaking out because, of course, he's like, they found us. We got to go. Like he's like in full panic mode. Miss Justinu finally gets the story from her. Basically, like, I saw children like me, except, they were playing with sticks and knives and laughing. She's like, but you can't tell Sergeant Parks or Miss Dr. Caldwell because I don't want Dr. Caldwell to be like dissecting them. Sergeant Parks is originally the ones that got the children, before, so she doesn't want him to know about the children.
Right.
So Miss Justinu basically like, okay, I've got to figure out something not to tell, And then at that point in that time, she's like, okay, I got to figure out a story. They hear like a rumbling sound. So Sergeant Parks got the mobile lab up and running. So they're like, okay, God, we can go now. Basically we can drive to Beacon.
Hey, come take a seat at the campfire. You're not the only one who joins. I've got friends that come over sometimes too. We talk about a ton of interesting things from geek culture. Then we cover some conspiracies or philosophical thoughts or monsters, We talked about Bigfoot in one episode. It's a lot of fun, so come join me at the Campfire Chats, a DFAT entertainment podcast hosted on Spotify and other fine places you find podcasts.
So they're getting ready to leave, and they're like, where's Gallagher? This is how not smart he is. So he has no food, like little water. He's like taking off, he goes forever long, and then he's like, he takes a break, and he's like sitting down, and he's like drinks the last of his water, and he's like, well, I'm going to starve to death. I better go get food. And he's like, oh yeah, we found food. Let me go back to that same cache, basically. My God. So he doubled back. And then that's how he gets eaten. And the same, he finds like the porno mag, which I find hilarious. Like his internal monologue, he's very perverted. He's like, it's gross. Like, I'm just like, I mean, why is this in the book? It's disgusting. Like, I highlighted a passage. I'm not going to read it because it's kind of gross.
Oh no, now you have to read it.
Like he says,
While you're doing that, I'll say the movie is rated R for disturbing violence, bloody images, and language. It's great. The tagline for this movie was "Our greatest threat is our only hope." But go ahead, find it.
He stares up into the featureless dark, thinks of the flash of Justinu's crotch he glimpsed while she was pissing on the gravel outside.
Oh, Jesus. That's
I'm
gross.
like, what? No. So, of course, no big loss with him, right? He wasn't really like that great of a character, dies, whatever. What I don't get is, let the guy go. Why are we searching for him? So they go to look for him.
Which, for the
They do
record,
in the- they do
they
in the movie.
abandoned 150 other people on base when they hopped into a truck and just booked it.
Booked it.
But this one guy who ran off on his own, let's go spend some time looking for him.
The 5 days that we've been with him, we really started to care. Let's go
Right.
search for him. No idea where he went. Like, who cares? He left. We're ready to go. First of all, they got the vehicle running. Why don't they just take the vehicle?
They walked for him?
They walked for him. So obviously, Dr. Caldwell is in no condition to be going anywhere.
Right.
So they leave her behind. Melanie does her like search dog thing, smelling for him. Obviously they find his body. So they're making their way back leisurely, apparently. Dr. Caldwell, meanwhile, is in the lab. She passes out. And I guess she passes out by the door, but she wakes up and a little girl staring at her.
Oh.
Outside. And then she sees all the other children coming out of like the area.
Right.
So they've obviously found this mobile lab that they're in. So she tests the door. So there's an interlock chamber. She's testing how fast it opens and closes because what she sees is not kids. She sees test subjects.
Right, of course.
Why not trap one? She doesn't do it fast enough, and she like squashes one in between the door. So yeah.
It's horrible.
It's terrible. But she doesn't care. She's like, whatever. It kind of worked anyway. So she's got like half this kid in this like unit, but obviously the door can't close all the way now.
Right.
So now all these kids are like trying to open it and like
because of
poke
all the
things.
guts.
So they slingshot a rock. She's in the suit, by the way. So they slingshot a rock and it like hits the mask off, and she's now bleeding from the face, cuts on her arms. She realizes she messed up.
Clearly.
Because she's like, they're gonna get through this door. It's not closing. So she's like trying to figure out the controls of how to start this. She's still like kind of like in this delirious stage of like going in and out. So she like starts it up and she starts moving basically this massive lab unit. So she's driving it down the road. But obviously the kid's stuck in the door. Kids are hanging off the door. She starts ramming into things, trying to like knock these kids.
Oh
it's like
my
speed.
God.
Like she's like
at the end of this book, everybody just lost their mind.
Exactly. Like literally the last 3 chapters, I'm like, what has happened? This is taking a turn. So she's like
that escalated quickly.
Right. So she's trying to fling them off, basically. So it's going like 60 miles an hour down this road. They hear, like, the 3 of them are still, Melanie, Justinu, and Parks are still like walking down the road back to the lab unit that they don't know is now mobile. They see it coming down the road. She doesn't stop for them. She just keeps going. They end up finding the vehicle. But before that, Dr. Caldwell stops, and because she comes to like it's a wall.
Okay.
So it's a wall of this fungus that has this tree fungus that has grown now. So she stops there because she can't go anywhere else. Obviously the kids are not following her anymore. She still has the one stuck in the door. So she goes, gets a bone saw, hacks his head off. So they come up on the scene. They obviously see the body on the road, and they're like, obviously Dr. Caldwell did this. They had taped the windows before, so the tape comes down, and Dr. Caldwell looks at him, and they're like, basically like, what the fuck?
What was all that about?
And they're like, let us in. And she's like, no. And then closes the window back up and leaves them outside. Melanie tricks Dr. Caldwell. She has the walkie. So she finds the channel that's on the same one as the lab and acts like she's Beacon. But it sounds like it's coming from, they're like, yeah, we found the mobile lab unit. It's not, we don't see anybody inside, or we're not getting anything from inside. So Dr. Caldwell's like, oh my God, they're here. They found us. So she dons the suit.
Oh, that's smart.
And like she runs outside. So like she gets in, and Melanie's like just sitting in the chair and like reading her notes. I was like, this is like amazing. Why didn't they do this in the movie? Like Melanie just comes up and is just like, tell me what this is about. Tell me about your research.
The movie, the characters do like 180-degree shift from just coming together and learning to essentially see the humanity in one another,
Right.
to Melanie saying, screw that, I'm going to wipe out the entire human population. This
Yeah.
is way more intriguing.
So Dr. Caldwell sits and she tells her about the research, tells her what she finds, and that's when she tells her basically that she ate
What
her
she
mom.
is.
Yeah, what she is. Dr. Caldwell just tells her there is no cure. There's basically nothing. You are the second generation of what's probably going to be the new humanity now. There is nothing. There's not going to be a cure. And then,
Okay, so that is monumentally different, because if you tell me in the movie that Caldwell comes to the conclusion that there is no cure, then I'm a little more in line with what Melanie does, and I understand with her knowledge of that how that affects her decision. You don't get that in the movie. That is crazy.
so I mean, Dr. Caldwell just dies. There's not. I don't think. I think. I don't know. I didn't get from the book whether Melanie ended up just killing her at the end or she just succumbed to her
Wound.
wound and died. But eventually the children find Justin New in Parks and are like shooting and stuff. And Melanie like calls him on the walkie and is like, "Oh my God, what has happened?" She's like, "I'm coming. I'm basically coming to save the day." The leader hits her with a bat. The mask comes off. They end up fighting to the death. Melanie beats him with a bat. So that's basically true to the movie.
Yeah,
And some
she
point,
does.
like
She
does
does
end up
fight
killing him.
the alpha and kills him with the bat.
Yeah. So now that all the other kids are like scared, basically, because their leader is now dead. So they Parks carries Justinu back to the pod, and all the kids are kind of like following behind them at like a distance. They put Justinu in the pod. Sergeant Parks is like, basically, I'm going to turn into a hungry. I need to get out of here. And Melanie's like, no, we have to do something. I need your help. And so he's like, oh, I got to help her do this one thing. So like he has no idea what he's doing. She just says we have to do this because he's thinking like she's trying to clear a path for us to drive out.
Right.
Or drive them two out, basically, because he knows he's gone. He's like, this isn't going to work. It's too thick. You're not going to be able to drive through this. She's like, don't worry. It's fine. We're good. So she takes him out. They sit down at this like overturned wheelbarrow. And then he's like, well, he gives her his gun. He wants her to kill her, like in the movie, kill him. So she's like, she takes the weapon and then he's like, what did we do? Because he's like slowly like, okay, what did we do? And he's like, don't make me take that weapon away and shoot you, basically. Tell me what we did. So she ends up telling him. And then he's dead. Basically, right. She shoots him. And then that's it. Like, she goes back in. Miss Justinu is awake and then realizes, like, she's now the prisoner in this.
Right. So the movie ends and with Miss Justinu being locked inside of this mobile lab unit.
Yeah.
And she is essentially using the double door feature to hold class like she did on base. And she's now teaching not only Melanie, but this group of feral children they stumbled across. The ending wasn't great. I wasn't a huge fan. But I don't want to hear your thoughts yet. Let's do the questions, and then we can talk about whether or not you like this movie. So as you may or may not be aware, we have established 3 questions that will hopefully help us determine whether or not this is a good movie. So as it pertains to 2016's The Girl with All the Gifts, question number 1, what was the message of the film and do you agree with it?
I don't know. Is there a message really in a zombie-ish type of movie?
Oh, of course. There's always a message.
I mean, I don't really know if there was to me, I just feel like it's like a Pandora's box, like you don't ever want to open it kind of situation.
Okay. I got more of a broader message. I think it plays into humanity and being accepting of others. I want to say I think the message of the film was playing into the acceptance of others. I think you see Sergeant Parker start becoming more and more accepting of Miss Justinu. I think you see Melanie become more and more accepting of her surroundings, and everybody becomes more and more accepting of Melanie. And ultimately, at the end, it's this kind of out with the old and with the new type thing. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
a very
I mean,
unclear message.
I guess I can see that. I guess it's like the humanity part, like be accepting of we all are going to end up doing something that we may live to regret in this type of environment, like in this crazy post-apocalyptic world. We're going to end up, doing things that we wouldn't normally do as we would, if this was like a normal everyday scenario.
Right.
Just New is like kind of the wrench in the plan. She's
Right.
the, like
She's the
she's
humanity.
she's the one. Yeah, she's the one that has humanity the whole time. Um, and is like, these are children. These aren't monsters, no matter how you look at it, whether they eat meat or, vegetables.
Hmm.
These are the children. And maybe she is like the saving grace out of the group that makes Sergeant Parks, like try to not be as more militarized, you know?
But I guess what's confusing about that is if we are going to go with that as the message, ultimately Sergeant Parks is kind of right because Melanie kills everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, not
I mean that
directly, but she releases the spores, and everybody's going to die because of that.
well, I think in her way of thinking, the second generation needs to happen, right? Because if you keep dissecting all these, these children, you're not going to have anything left because eventually these spores are going to get out one way or another. Something is going to happen and the spores are going to get out. Someone's going to test the theory, like they talk about the spores in the book, how like they could travel great distances for many, many years, it's hard to fight against like a microscopic thing that you
Right.
can't see. So she's like, we're the second generation. And she's basically made Miss Justinu the teacher of the second generation. She's made her like this, this adult motherly figure that's going to raise these children to educate them like Melanie is. And maybe that's how they're going to build up humanity again.
It's just it's very convoluted to me.
It's a hard, I mean, I don't know.
Zom-
This is a zombie movie. Is there really a message in a zombie movie?
It's a good point. That's a good point. All right, question number 2. How did the movie leave you feeling, and do you think it was intentional?
I don't know. I needed more. Like really, I just needed to have more of a like I want more kind of feeling. Like I just felt like
What
it was just like
what aspect of the story made you want more? Like,
I just
what storyline did you want to see continue?
I think it was harder. It's harder for me to say that because I read the book, so I know what it was supposed to be.
Right.
Melanie's like, but in the book, she doesn't stay in the pod. She's like in the suit,
Hmm.
and Melanie's like the watchdog of all the kids, and is like, don't touch her. Melanie and Miss Justin is just teaching, and that's how it is. Like that's how it ends. It's just her teaching these children. Would have wanted to have a second one. I think I probably would have wanted more of maybe Sergeant Park surviving, and then like there being like a family dynamic between all three of them, because
I
obviously they got together, and then maybe Melanie's a child, and then they're all kind of like in this environment where they're like forgetting about Beacon because Beacon's totally forgot about it at this point. They
right.
just forget about Beacon, and they're just focusing on these children.
Well, they allude in the movie that Beacon has been overrun. They don't come right
Yeah,
out and say it, but there's several attempts to contact Beacon that go unanswered, and there's some hints in the background of Beacon being overrun.
yeah. So I think in that aspect, I think that's where I would want more of a storyline. I kind of was just left like wanting more. And I don't know if that's intentional because obviously it didn't do good in the box office. There's not going to be a second movie. But isn't there a second book coming out? The Boy on the Bridge or something?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see anything in my research on that, but that's not to say. I mean, I didn't do a lot of research on the book. That would be crazy. I'd be
There
interested in
has
seeing
to be
what that
because
storyline is.
we got people to say, yeah. So there's a second book coming, or if it's
The
already out,
Boy
I'm
on
not
the
really sure.
Bridge.
Yeah, and it's the same background as the first book, so it's the same orange yellow silhouette of a boy.
Huh.
So
I
yeah, so there's
smell
good.
season 3.
So maybe there is gonna discover. Yeah, so maybe there.
I did not.
I will not read that book, but maybe I can't get past like 60 pages of like they're still like walking through the city, and then like the last 3 chapters, the action happens. Like I can't.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you when watching the movie, I was left feeling a bit underwhelmed. I didn't like the ending. I didn't like the 180-degree turn the characters made, especially Melanie. I think it kind of betrayed her her story leading up to that point to make her make that decision. And
But did it really though? I mean, like
it
think
did
about this.
because
She was
here's it
treated so bad in the beginning,
right,
right? She was
but
called they're
then
called
why not
abortions
why not turn on them at any point throughout the movie?
because
Why
she
wait until
cares
the
about
end
Miss
when there's hope
Justinu.
there?
Because she cares about Miss Justinu. So she doesn't want to turn on Miss Justinu. She hates Dr. Caldwell. She pretty much is like, screw you.
Yeah, but
Gallagher she
I don't
thinks
know.
is stupid.
I don't
Parks is just an
I think
authoritarian figure.
your explanation of the book made it seem like it was definitely more of a build up to her decision, and it makes more sense in that
Yeah.
context of understanding there is no cure. In the movie, it was just kind of like you're going around, you're helping these humans, you have the same goal up until the very end, and then your goal does a 180 for what appears to be little to no reason.
Well, yeah,
And
I guess in the movie she says it's like Sergeant Parks is like, why? And she's like, it was you or us. Basically,
yeah,
she
it's
made the decision
inevitable,
between.
which
Yeah.
I didn't get that sense. So, and I don't think that was intentional. Um, Question number three: what is the most important sequence in the movie?
The Gallagher sequence, basically where Gallagher start like where he gets eaten, because
Mhm.
basically you realize like these are smart creatures. Like they've put food on the road for him, and he follows this trail like Hansel and Gretel. Like he's like
Yeah,
following the breadcrumbs to like the stock of food. Because that just sets the chain of events for everything. That introduces the new children. She sees them, and she's like, she knows that they're more like her. I think that sets the whole tone for the movie. Um, but it's towards the end again, like it's like hour
right.
30.
And that's the only reason why I can't agree with that. I mean, I think that's an important sequence because it sets up the ending. But to me, the most important sequence is really the beginning. Them on the base where you have these children getting carted around in wheelchairs and they're in, essentially prison uniform because it shows you this chained up innocence and how this world is dark now. This world is gritty, and even children are things you have to look at, wondering if they're gonna, hurt you. And I think that kind of sets up like this is a no bullshit scenario that they're in.
I guess that's right, because you're just like, who in their right mind would ever have children test subjects? Like,
Right.
why aren't they starting with like the adults at this point? Or like, why are these children being the ones that are, the smart ones? Or I guess I could see how the first part of the movie. I mean, it's a great opening sequence, and that's how it happens in the book too. Like that's how the opening they follow that to like pretty much a T. Yeah, and then I guess the introduction of Dr. Caldwell, she's like walking down like the hallways,
Yeah,
and
that was really cool. I liked that.
yeah, could be. I really wish they would have played up Dr. Caldwell's character more. She was the highlight of the book, I believe, like just the craziness that she was. Because in the one we didn't talk about this, in one of the scenes she actually chases Melanie through that house that they're like that insane hospital that they're in. She chases her, and that's how they end up finding that one guy. But in the book he's actually like singing. So they're like, that's like why it's like, oh my, why is he singing? Like it's a
Right.
very like odd thing for him to be doing.
So I gotta ask you then, on a scale of 1 to 10, one being horrible and 10 being a masterpiece, what do you rate this movie? Was it good?
Yeah. For what the book was to the movie, I think it was decent. I would rate it like a 5.5.
I would also give it a 5, but I would not describe it as decent. I think it was. I mean, no,
I
I guess
The
decent is a good
concept was
word.
decent. I think it was a good concept to a comparing it just to a regular old zombie movie. I think they
Yeah,
did it very well.
I
A
like the
different
new
take.
approach. I like that zombies weren't the center of the movie. It was decent. It would have been a lot better had the ending not been what it was. The ending to me really screwed the pooch. Up until
Yeah.
that point, it was halfway good. I probably would have gotten a 7, but the ending brings it down to a 5. So all in all, was it a good movie? I could go either way. It was decent. If you get the opportunity to watch it, take it. Maybe play it in the background. It's definitely one of those movies that I don't think you have to pay all that much attention to. You
No.
can get the gist of it. It got a lot of comparisons when it first came out at 28 days later, and also the Last of Us video game. both of which I could totally see pandemic movies and zombies and so on. But 28 Days is definitely a far more superior movie.
I agree. It was a way better. I'm very zombie movie. I love zombie movies.
The filming of this movie took 7 weeks, which
That's
is
it?
yeah, not bad at all. I mean, you have a very low number of actors. There's also a very small budget. It doesn't surprise me that the filming was quick, but 7 weeks is definitely a rush. I guess when you're in Chernobyl, you never have to deal with a lot of people screwing up shots and everything or extras.
The book was
Um,
actually a short story that he
uh,
made into a novel.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So maybe there was a lot. Maybe it's more based on the short story than it is the whole novel.
We'll have to do a sequel where you read the short story instead of the novel, and then watch the
No,
movie all over again.
no, we had to find a better book for me to read.
So I don't know if you know about Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes is a website where they rate movies. They both rate it by critics and audience, and we like to play a little game here called Guess That Tomato. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guess the audience score for 2016's The Girl with All the Gifts. Then I'm going to give you a couple of hints and see if you want to change your score, and we'll see how close you get. So on a scale of 0 to 100, 5,000 people rated this movie. What do you think they rated it?
55.
55. Okay, good guess. I'm going to give you the critics rating of this movie. 128 critics rated this movie an 85.
Oh,
I'm also going to give you 3 movies that are within 2% of this movie's rating. You ready?
yeah.
Movie number 1, Zombieland Double Tap, the sequel, the follow-up to the 2009 movie that did the unthinkable. They killed Bill Murray. Movie number 2, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, 2019's craziest casting choice when they picked on-screen heartthrob Ryan Reynolds to play a completely CGI character. That was smart thinking. And then movie number 3, Magic Mike XXL, which, if you watch it in reverse, is about a group of guys who pay women to watch them get dressed.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I like the other way, but I mean that works too.
So you guessed a 55. Do you want to change that guess at all?
For the critic, I hate critic. I'm not a very big fan of film critics because I just think they're old people that just like don't get movies.
That's very well put, by the way.
I'll go 65.
65. The audience score for 2016's The Girl with All the Gifts is 67.
Yeah.
You were close. You were real close with your second guess. It's awesome.
I hate critics. I just don't understand them.
So, as an entity of DFAT Entertainment, it's a firm believer of the owners of Don't Forget a Towel that everybody geeks out on something. While it may not be movies and comic books, maybe it's zombies and dissecting children. So I've got to ask you, Chelsey, what is it you're geeking out on right now, other than reading?
I do enjoy the Sims game. I haven't played in a while. They just came out with a new patch the other day, I believe.
So your computer game.
On my computer, yeah.
Okay, this isn't a phone download. They have a mobile app now, don't they?
They do, but that's lame. Who
It's
wants
lame,
that?
completely
No,
lame.
come on, Sims 4, like, yeah.
I had The Sims growing up. I loved The Sims, but I didn't actually play The Sims. What I did was I'd log in and I would build the houses.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, 'cause
that's fun. Yeah,
it's hours of fun. And
right?
then once I get to the point of playing the game, I would just destroy the house and
That's
start
all
over.
Alec likes to do. He just builds houses.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so
So, have you been playing for a while?
I have played probably since I was in middle school, so
What is the longest you've kept a character alive?
oh, I don't know.
Do
Maybe
they
like
die of old age?
they
as
do,
they
but there's also a cheat code where you can have them live forever. So there's also a cheat code where you get more money. I think I've made it through maybe like 2 or 3 generations. Probably not like the best, but like my family has gone through a few generations.
Wow. That's pretty
It's
impressive.
dedication. I mean, I don't have my computer in here, but I probably could tell you like how many hours I've played of Sims, which is probably not.
Hey, everybody's got their thing though.
You can like pick their favorite colors now, and it sounds
You can
exciting.
pick their favorite color. I mean, how have we lived this long
I
without
don't.
being able to do that for our Sims?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, why hasn't what are the developers doing? Like, why haven't they
I want to know how that
done this?
affects, like, if you pick their favorite color to be red and then make their entire house like green, will they just go ape shit and just freak out?
Well, yeah, so like that's part of the play, right? So they don't like certain things, and if certain things happen around them, they get like angry or like that affects their behavior and moods. So that's part of the gameplay. I sound like a total dweeb right now.
Trust me, we've
But
had
I
way worse on the
love
show.
it.
I just got Star Wars Squadrons, which is TIE fighting in VR, and I'm stoked to do it, and the kids are excited.
See, I don't, Amelia. So I don't know. I feel like, you know what I feel? I feel like we're letting our daughter down a little bit. Just get off topic here. Is it like all these kids are like playing Minecraft, and my daughter has no idea what Minecraft is.
It's crazy. Jason's obsessed with Minecraft, and I'm
I
I'm
don't.
looking at the. I spent my entire generation getting video games to the VR point, and
Then we
now
go
they're
back.
regressing to Minecraft. This is ridiculous.
I feel like I'm like, is Minecraft the game where you like try to find the bombs on like the that little like
It's Minesweep, but close.
minesweep?
But
Is
close.
is that the same concept? Like
Very
I don't
similar, yeah.
understand it. And I feel like we're letting Amelia down because like all these people know like they're growing up in this generation of Minecraft and I'm like, go play soccer. Like I don't understand.
But Chelsey, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks for spending the time reading the book and watching the movie. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
This was fun. Let's do it again.
Stop sounding so surprised.
I am. I'm very surprised. I think it's more fun because I read the book.
But now we've locked you in. You got a special episode every season.
Oh yeah. So just tell me what I gotta read. Make it interesting though. Don't make me
No,
read
you
like
got to tell me.
no,
You're
see,
the
this
you're
is
the
where it is.
book person.
I
You
know,
got
but
to read a good book and
I'm
then
not a
tell me.
decision person. That's the problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Chelsey. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
You've got Gutsy Media Podcast. Leave a message about any movies you covered, and maybe we'll add it to the show. Thanks.
Hello. I like to fancy myself as a zombie aficionado, and I do like this movie, The Girl with All the Gifts. It's a very good zombie movie for multiple reasons. First, the ending is surprising. It's got a very different ending than most usual zombie movies. Two, the little girl, the black girl, who I didn't think could be a good actor, but she is, she does a fantastic job throughout this entire movie. And then there's the military people. Now, they're racist, like myself, but I enjoyed every part of this movie. So it was a good one, and I recommend everybody read the book and everybody watch the movie, because the movie's so good. The movie I like. I'll talk to you later. Thank you and goodbye. Have a good day, sir.